Hello. Today we're being going over Is It the Worth Grind series, where we're going to be talking about are the Soviet ships worth grinding. So we're going to be going into the tech tree and taking a look at each of the lines that are available for the Soviets in World of Warships. Now, each of these lines I'm going to be having timestamped in the description, so if there's a particular line that you're trying to get information on or interested in, you can just skip to those parts at any time. The first line we're going over is going to be the Grozovi line. It is the original line for the Soviets. It starts at the Minsk and goes down to the Ognavoy, then the Udaloy, and the Grozovoy. Now, I'm going to say that the Grozovoy is not worth grinding in today's meta, and I'm going to explain why. The progression is very uneven for the ships in this branch. So the Minsk plays differently than the Ognavoy. Then the Udaloy plays differently than the Ognavoy. And then the Udaloy plays differently than the Grozovoy. So for a line that's like for a newer player, it's not really a good line to teach you a certain play style. It kind of just mix and matches between torpedo boats, gun boats, or jack of all trades, which can really throw somebody off that's trying to learn a line. Like the Grozovoy itself is a good ship on its own. It is a good ship. You get a smoke, you get an engine boost, you get a heal, and you get DFA, which is all really nice. You get 12-kilometer torpedoes, which are really nice. You get decent guns. You get a heal. You get nice concealment, and maneuverability is also really good as well. It's just not a really good line to teach, per se. Like, kind of like the daring line, it's better for teaching, or the Shima, or the gearing line per se for teaching like certain habits. The Grozovi line is definitely not good for that. If you're more like a later player in the game, then sure, I would recommend the Grozovi line since the Grozovi itself is a really good tier 10 destroyer. But other than that, I wouldn't really recommend it for like a new or like if this is like your first destroyer line, then I definitely wouldn't recommend it. So moving on from the Grozovoy, let's talk about the Delny line. So the Delny line is the second destroyer line that was added to the Soviets. It starts at the Kiev, Tashkent, Delny, and Zorky. This line specializes in a mid to long range HE farming, very similar to the Kleber, but this ship has a few distinctions differently than the Kleber line, and I'll show you now. The Delny has a choice between a heal or a smoke screen, which the Kleber line does not have. So you can pick between a heal or a smoke. A lot of people pick the heal because they do that mid to long range HE farming, but some people choose the smoke generator instead to farm in smoke and kind of rotate or move around and then smoke up again whenever they can. The smoke generator thing is actually really unique. You get a 100-second dispersion time and a 30-second action time. Pretty much, as soon as the final smoke is done, you have like about a 5 or 10-second window, like after the smoke is done dispersing, where you get your smoke again. So you can just keep laying your smokes over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So without being spotted. So it's really nice. So I like that a lot. The engine boost is really nice as well. The maneuverability on this thing is really fast. It's not as fast as the Kleber line itself, but it's one of the fastest destroyer lines in the game, just not as fast as the Kleber. I would definitely recommend this line after you've developed your skills on the Kleber line. This is definitely a more higher skill line than compared to the Kleber line. The torpedoes on this thing are 10 kilometers, which is nice. You get 10 of them, so pretty good. Concealment is going to be like 7.5-ish, 7.6-ish when you build into it. I would definitely recommend it if it's like, say, your second, third, maybe fourth destroyer line going down. But I would definitely say get the Kleber line first and then get this line and you'll be all set. But overall, really good line. A lot of fun. The guns are really good. 130 millimeter, you get 6 of them. They're really good overall. The ships also get armor plating on the side here with the 50 millimeter. I believe it goes all the way down. I know that the Delny does. I know the Tashkent does. Let me double check if the Kiev does. Kiev does not. So it starts at the Tashkent is when they start getting that armor plating. Now, going past the Delny is the Zorky. Zorky is one of the strongest super ships in the game. Very, very, very strong, incredibly strong. So if you're interested in getting the Delny, you'll sooner or later get the Zorky, and this thing is an absolute powerhouse. One of the best long-range HE farmers in the game for destroyers. Has a heal, has an engine boost, even has a burst fire key. Very maneuverable, very fast. Unfortunately, the anti-air isn't the best, but that's just how it is for most destroyer lines. But overall, very good line, and the super ship is also very strong as well if that is what you're interested in. It also gets that a lot more armor plating on this ship than compared to the tier 10, so it's a lot tankier for a destroyer than normal destroyers. So if you're fighting another destroyer, it's going to have a hard time damaging you if its HE hits these sections here. So you'll come out on top in a lot of your destroyer engagements because of that. So that's my thoughts on the Delny line itself. So moving on from the Delny line, we're going to be talking about the Nevsky line. Now, the Nevsky line, you start off with the Shores, the Chappie, the Donskoy, and the Nevsky. The Shores does not have a radar. The 12-kilometer radar starts the Chappie, the Donskoy, and the Nevsky. And all of the Russian cruisers have the 12-kilometer radar. So all these cruisers have 12-kilometer radar. They just have different durations. So for the Nevsky itself, it has a 36-second radar when you build into it with this. It's normally 30 seconds base. And I highly recommend the Nevsky line itself. It's a very good anti-destroyer line with the long-range radar and railgun ballistics. These guns are one of the fastest ballistics in the game at 1,000 meters per second. Pretty much, if you build into gun range on this thing and you're like max range, like 21 kilometers away, the airtime is like 12, 13 seconds-ish, I believe, for max range, which is absolutely insane that you can shoot that far that fast. And these shells are incredibly accurate from the Nevsky. Pretty much, if you radar a destroyer, you're going to be pinpoint hitting them like a laser beam. And destroyer players hate you for it. This is one of the most feared cruiser to fight against if you're in a destroyer. Just because that radar, you're just going to get absolutely harassed the whole time if you're anywhere within it. Normally, the Nevsky line is played at mid to long range HE farming. AP you can do on broadside targets, like upper deck on the battleships or upper deck or siding of a cruiser. It's not going to do citadels really at all, unless you're really close on some cruisers, but it will do a lot of damage over time, just from the extra AP, like the penetration damage. So the Nevsky line itself, they get hydroacoustics or DFAA. You get a 12-kilometer radar, and you get a heal. On the tier 8, it does not get a heal, but it does get the radar and the hydro. The tier 9 gets the heal, the radar, and the hydro. The ships also get torpedoes, which are 8 kilometers. You're not going to be using these unless it's like a drive-by scenario, or if you're at an island and you're trying to leave, and as you're leaving, you torp. That's like the only way it's really going to happen. For depth charges, unfortunately, this line does not get aerial depth charges. You only get the surface ones, so it's really a pain against submarines. Yeah, unfortunate. Anti-air, though, is actually pretty decent on this line. You get 6.9 kilometer anti-air, which is really good. And so overall, nice anti-air. Really good anti-air for the Soviets. Maneuverability, it is a very fast light cruiser with 36 knot speed. Really good in that regard. Concealment, it has very good concealment. When you build all the way into concealment, it's almost able to do a stealth radar at like 12.6 or 12.3 or 4-ish. So it's almost able to do a stealth radar when you build into it all the way. So really amazing in that regard. So I would highly recommend the Nevsky line as a line to go down. It's a very strong anti-DD, very strong HE farmer. Just overall, Just amazing. I absolutely love it. One of the best cruiser lines in the game for randoms. Just overall, just amazing. Highly recommend it. Recommend the grind. Also, if my number is off for the concealment for the Nevsky, let me know, because I feel like it's slightly higher than 12.6. I think maybe it's like 12.7-ish, but yeah, someone can let me know in the comments. So moving on from the Nevsky recommendation, let's talk about the Petro. The Petro, oh man, dude, the Petro line, man. Whew. So it starts off at the Talon, the Riga, the Petro itself, and then the Novo. Where to begin? This line has amazing AP ballistics. Very strong pen for the gun caliber. The line itself gets a hydro, a radar, and a heal. You also can switch to DFA if you like. It does get aerial ASW since this is considered a heavy cruiser, so it does get aerial ASW, which is really nice. The anti-air on the line itself is actually very strong. Petro has one of the strongest flaks for cruisers. Also, the continuous damage also nice as well, but it has one of the strongest anti-airs for cruisers in the game. And to top it all off, the Petro itself is just like a monster for what it can do. Like the Riga and the Talon themselves aren't that remarkable in their own. Like, they're nothing to write home about, but the Petro is literally a competitive staple. It's going to be there in almost every single tourney or clan battles, unless it's banned. If it's banned, then yeah, you're not going to see it. But if it's allowed, then it's going to be brought in. The AP on this thing is able to citadel Kremlins at 13 kilometers. 12, 13 kilometers, a broadside Kremlin, it can citadel, which is remarkable for a 220 millimeter size gun. Let's just think about it. You're just sailing broadside to a cruiser, and you're like, oh, it's just a Petro. It's not going to hurt me. And then all of a sudden, he just does like 30k damage to you by citadeling you, and you're like, what the hell? And, you know, just good old Soviet bias. The shells are incredibly fast, laser point accurate. If you have the legendary mod, is laser point accurate. The turrets are 360, by the way. So if you are facing like bow in, you have the rear turret that can turn left and right. Or if you're cutting away, all three turrets are looking back, so you can wiggle back and forth very easily and get all of your guns off. Top it all off, the armor on this thing is insane. You get a 50 millimeter armored bow with a 25 millimeter upper bow and a 40 millimeter deck, and a very armored citadel, and 25 millimeter aft, in the same armor for the aft area as well. Now, this ship is, as you can see, it has an above water citadel, right? It should be easy to citadel. You would think so, but this ship is like almost impossible to citadel. It's actually a meme that if you citadel a Petro, that it's actually like rigged or you're hacking for doing it, because for some reason Petros just don't get citadeled at all, and if you do, it's very rare. So even though they raised the ship slightly out of water, because you can tell like from the paint, it still barely gets citadeled. For even though the citadel's above water, it's very hard to citadel this thing, which makes it even tankier. And when this thing is sitting bow in, if you look at this armor, because how this ship plays is bow in, look at how small that superstructure is. So if you're trying to hit bow in Petro with HE at distance, you're trying to hit this section, or even up close, you're trying to hit this section to do damage. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. That's all I'm going to say. And with how good the pen is for these guns, you can just knock out pretty much every turret in the game, except for the Soviet battleships, of course. Some of the high tier battleships for the Japanese, the Americans. There's a few turrets that it can't go through, but it can pretty much shoot through battleship turrets, cruiser turrets. It doesn't matter. And you can just AP those turrets to death and make it where they don't damage you. so they can't shoot you, which is absolutely hilarious. And since this thing has laser accurate rounds, if there is a destroyer inside of your radar range when you radar, you can just laser shoot them with the HE or AP and just do massive chunks. This thing is a cruiser and battleship nightmare if it's uncontested. Same with destroyer. This thing is a staple for competitive, staple for any game mode, randoms, ranked, you name it, you can play it. Highly recommended. Definitely get it. One of the best cruiser lines in the game. Just incredible. Funny enough, the Novo, I consider the Novo a downgrade from the Petro. And the reason why I say that is because it doesn't have the 360 turrets, right? And even though the guns are bigger, it doesn't have the 360 turrets of the Petro. So it's harder for this ship to keep all of its guns in the fight than compared to the Petro. So overall, I consider the Petro literally the super ship of the line, while I consider the Novo a downgrade. And if anyone has objections to that, I'm really interested to see your takes in that, because some people agree with me and some people don't. So I'm pretty interested in that. All right, so moving on from the cruisers, let's talk about the legendary Kremlin line and the Yushkavov line. So let's talk about it. The Kremlin line, by far, is the tankiest battleship line in the game. It loves to play at close range and is also sometimes used in competitive play for heavy pushing teams. So for the Russian battleships, like the Kremlin line, their dispersion gets better the closer the ship is to it. So the further away it is, probably starting around 12, 13 kilometers, it starts getting like really inaccurate, or it starts getting more inaccurate the further away it gets. But when you start getting closer with like 10, 9, 8, you start getting closer to the target, you start just pinpoint accurate hitting wherever you're aiming. And you have 9 457 millimeter guns. These guns pack a wallop. And this ship is also heavily armored and heavily, well, it has a lot of HP, 113,000 HP when you have the flag. And look at this armor, 32 millimeter bow at the front with armored bow section right here. And look at that citadel section, 430 millimeters, 410. Deck armor is 60. This thing is just a floating fortress. Very hard to farm with HE, hard to pen with AP. If you're sitting bow wind, you're not going anywhere for a very long time. And this line comes with a quick action control party. So it's a very quick action cooldown. So it has a 14-second action time and a 40-second cooldown time. So you can keep repairing over and over again until you're out, which would suck because then you can't repair floods or fires or whatever. It also has a really nice heal as well. These turrets are almost also unknockable. They have 550 millimeters of armor. So if they get knocked out, then I don't know. I guess it's just rigged at that point. Anti-air on this thing, it's actually pretty decent with 6.6 kilometers. Over time, they originally when the Kremlin came out, and it's been out for a little bit, they nerfed the survivability of the anti-air and the secondaries, but they unnerfed that recently. So it made a return for Kremlins not getting their anti-air knocked out. But back in the day, it would have all of its anti-air knocked out super easily. Now, it's a lot harder for that to happen. The maneuverability, 31 knots, it's about average for a tier 10 battleship for definitely how big it is. Like, yeah, it's really good for just how massive it is. Dependability, you're going to be spotted from space. This thing is literally a floating fortress. So, torpedo protection is also really nice with 46%. Really good for a tier 10 battleship. That 46%, really, really good, by the way. I like it a lot. I would highly recommend the Kremlin. It's fun for brawls, ranks, randoms, you name it. It's really fun to play overall. I like it a lot. So moving on from the Kremlin, we'll talk about the Yushkavov, but I'll just show the line real quick. So going down here, the line itself, all of these ships play about the same. They all play very similarly, mid to close range battleships. They all play very much the same, very similarly. Tanking, battle tanking, or kiting. That's what the playstyle is going to be. The Isabel is considered a bad ship of the line, even though I really like it. It starts getting really good at the Sinop, the Flad, and the Soyuz, and then you have the top like the Kremlin and the Yushkov. So overall, you're going to have a very similar experience throughout playing all of these. I think the only one that's going to be really different is the Ismail, and that's just because of the turret placements. Like if you look here real quick, the turrets are placed like this, while the rest of the line have that 2 turrets in the front and 1 in the back configuration. So that's like the only ship that's really played different, but the rest of them are going to be having very similar play styles and very similar positioning to how the tier 10 will be, which is really nice for learning tanky ships. So it's really nice to learn like a habit for how to play it. So I like it overall. So moving on, let's talk about the Yushkov for this Kremlin line. So this thing has 142,000 HP, by the way. A crap ton of HP. A ton. It's very tanky. More tanky than the Kremlin, because it's a super version. Very tanky. Guns are more armor, 650. It's very hard to Citadel the Kremlin line overall, unless you're just sitting broadside. If you're sitting broadside, or you're sitting angled to where they can hit like in here, or like right here-ish, then yeah, you deserve to get Citadeled. But if you're sitting bow in or like angled enough, then you'll be fine. You'll be perfectly fine. One thing I don't like about the Yushkov itself is the fact that it has a 35% torpedo protection compared to the Kremlin's 49%. So it's kind of a downgrade compared to the Kremlin. You do get a combat instruction that increases the gun range and makes the guns more accurate, which I think is really nice. But with how big this ship is, and the fact that it's not the most maneuverable with how big of a turning radius it has and that rudder shift, that the speed itself is okay because it's how massive it is. Anti-air is really good on this ship. It is better than the Kremlin's. Airstrikes, you do get airstrikes as well, which is really nice. But nah, this thing is going to be spotted from actual space. You are going to be perma-spotted all match, essentially. You ain't going to be going dark anytime soon in this ship. I wouldn't recommend the Yushkov as like a super ship itself, because there are better super ships like the Main or the Satsuma. But if you want a really tanky super ship, then the Yushkov will be for you. Just sit bow in, and you ain't dying anytime soon. You do get the fast repair party and the healing as well, which is really nice. So that's that for the battleships. Now, moving on, time to talk about the 2 final lines, the K1 line and the Nakhimov line. So the K1 line starts at the S1, goes on the L20, and the K1. All right, so let's talk about it. Do I recommend the K1? Short answer, no. I don't recommend it. It's better just to play the German subs than it is to play the K1. There are some caveats with this line. If you've seen how like a Gato played, or like how it's meant to be more on the surface play style, surface or periscope. It's very slow underwater, like at 30 or 60 meters, while it's very fast on the surface or periscope. So you're doing very much hit and run tactics, just doing pretty much donuts, just doing Kirby spins over and over again while you're trying to hit the enemy. You can use, so you are able to use there are a lot of torpedoes on this thing. You get 10 torpedoes in total. You get homing torpedoes and non-homing. The non-homing torpedoes actually do a lot of damage with almost 18,000 damage, while the homing torpedoes do almost 6,000. Your main torpedo is going to be non-homing, You are going to be using homing, though, for like trying to hit destroyers or more maneuverable cruisers. But a lot of the time, you're going to be using your non-homing torpedoes to do a lot of your damage. And if you're interested in playing more of a submarine line that it doesn't use homing torpedoes as much, then I would recommend the KY line at that point. But overall, it's just better to play the German subs if you're actually wanting to play a sub, which I don't really recommend. So, moving on from that, the final line we'll be going over is going to be the Nakhimov line. Man, I don't even... God, this thing. Where do I even begin? So, the ships itself, you get attack fighters, you get torpedo bombers, and then you get skip bombers. What makes the Nakhimov so strong and a menace in today's meta is the fact that when these squadrons launch or attack, it uses the whole squadron in the attack. So it does one attack run, right? And the thing is that when these things launch, they get these little rocket boosters that push them up. So when you're using the engine boost of the planes as they're flying and then that rocket boost, you can move really fast into a position very quickly to where you're trying to fly to. So if you position your Nakhimov properly, you're able to send an attack to a ship every 30 seconds. And that's full attack squadrons every 30 seconds. And since these guys have a one attack with their squadrons, fighters can be almost ignored. As in, if a squadron attaches to you, you can do F key. And also, since you're moving so fast, you're moving in so fast using one squadron, you can just do the attack quickly and instantly get out. And these squadrons barely take any damage from anti, or unless they're just sitting in it, because their ranges for attacks are pretty far back. So you're able to get in, do your damage, and get out with your planes without taking a lot of damage. And these attack fighters can do up to 25,000 damage to battleships, cruisers, CVs, you name it. It can do a massive amount of damage. These torpedoes are also no lightweight either. They do 5,200 per attack. Oh, sorry, per torpedo. And you get seven of these in one squadron. They do a very narrow path facing forward. So if you're hitting this from the side or a bow wind, if someone's sitting bow wind to you as you're doing these, you can legit spam these out every 30 seconds, keep hitting them over and over and over and over again, and they're gonna burn through their DCP, and you're gonna flood them, and then you can hit them with the attack fighter and then the skip bomber. The skip bombers are really good against cruisers and battleships. They're not very good against destroyers. The one main weakness of the Nakhimov is against destroyers. If destroyers know how to dodge against these, which it's not really hard to do, it's going to get killed, or it's just not going to be able to do much against them. It can sit on top of the destroyers and permaspot them, but attacking them is very, very, very hard for the Nakhimov to attack destroyers. Everything else, though, fair game. You're going to be top of the team in damage most of the time. You're just an absolute menace to society. You name it, it's just broken. But yeah, it's just absolute absurdity. I would only say the Nakhimov, if you want to play the Nakhimov, it's only good if you're like a CV main. And if you like playing modes like ranked. In ranked, this thing is an absolute monster because of the close range of the map. You will be hated so much for playing this ship because of how fast you can send out planes and just keep hitting them over and over and over and over again nonstop just until they're dead. So that's my overview of the Soviet lines. If you guys have any questions or concerns, let me know in the comments down below. And thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you all later. Deuces.